One. All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Gap Podcast, where we discuss careers, education, lifestyle, and the journey through it all with your one and only host, Gregory Bailey. I have a great friend, Chelsea Giuseppe, all the way from AZ. How you doing, Chelsea?
Doing good. Sweating, but good.
Yeah, yeah. What's the weather out there? What you got weather out there?
I mean, I'm in a hoodie, so it means it's like 98 degrees outside, so.
It's funny though. It is really funny. So I always made fun of people in Florida and Cali and like when they're in like 50-degree weather or 60-degree weather and they're wearing like hoodies. I'm like, what are you doing? 'Cause that's warm here. But like when you live out in like 100-degree weather, it drops to 50. You're like, man, I'm freezing.
It's bad. I sit in 80 degrees sometimes, and I'm like, oh, it's cold. I need a blanket.
Yeah, yeah. That's I feel you on that. So let's hop right into it. So I pretty much start out. I'm not sure if you listen to the podcast, but where were you in high school? What did you think you were gonna do? What did you think you were gonna get out of? And kind of what was your journey? What you thought it was gonna be out of high school?
Nothing how it turned out, but I graduated high school, top of my class. High school was super easy to me, and
Ooh.
kind of I did listen to your podcast with Dylan, and kind of like Dylan, everyone when you graduate, and if you're decently smart, they're like, you're gonna be a doctor, a physical therapist, a dentist. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be a doctor, but I want to be a dentist. That seems like a nice job. So I went to school for biology. I went to Wheeling Jesuit. I swam on a scholarship. I learned that college was a lot harder than high school. And I got a minor in chemistry with the only idea was that I was going to get into dental school, which never happened.
So okay. So let's dig into that a little bit more. So why did you not go to dental school?
So I tried. So
Okay.
ironically, this will be the best part. So I applied 2 years. I got rejected both times. You apply between your junior and your senior year typically, and then you can apply as many times after. It's really expensive.
Okay.
It's like between $500 and $1,000 to apply. After taking into account like the DAT and things. So I took some time off, and that's when I ended up at Milan. But I didn't get in because they said my freshman chemistry grade I got a C in Gen Chem. So they said I could not be. I could go and get a master's in chemistry or a PhD to prove that I could handle dental school.
Wow, that's crazy. Because C's get degrees, so I mean it's
Exactly. Like I never failed a class. I never had to retake a class.
I can't believe you didn't get in just because you got a C in one class. Like
I mean, it is really competitive, but both times my rejection letter said, yeah,
were you trying
grade.
for like one specific school then, or like did you apply to a couple, like since you were saying it's like $500 to like $1,000, were you just trying for one specific school, or did you like switch up a school, like when you didn't get it at one, did you try a second one, or did you just go for the same one?
So there's actually a book when you apply to dental school that tells you like based on your grades and what you've done, your chances of getting into each school. I applied to, because some schools are very strict and some, which are surprising, Harvard is not. So I applied to Harvard, just for shits and giggles. Cause I feel like
Harvard isn't like hard to get into.
It's hard to get into, but as far as their like stipulations go, cause for example, forget what school it was. Some schools you had to have a certain grade on different parts of your DAT. You had to never have a B in something. Harvard was like, apply. Like, as long as you've taken these classes, we'll consider you. So both times I was like, someone's going to throw off the bell curve a little bit, right? I'm going to apply to Harvard. But I did apply to WVU, and I applied to Pitt, begrudgingly. And then I applied to some other Catholic schools that I figured maybe me going to a Catholic undergrad would help me get in.
Yeah.
And my whole goal was actually I was gonna go to dental school. I was gonna join the Navy, and the Navy was gonna pay for dental school because I didn't want to have debt.
Okay. So you didn't do any of those then?
No, I didn't get into it. I got rejected, and all with the same sort of premise. I had interviews at Pitt and WVU, both years, and both rejections were, we see you had a rough freshman year. You got a C in general chemistry. Why didn't you retake that?
So
I was like,
wow.
well, I got an A in analytical chemistry.
That, like, to me, like that. So like that's like the pinnacle of like dumb, like just so dumb. Like freshman, you're gonna take my freshman year class, like my first year in college, where people probably partied the absolute most, and like are just like they're like adjusting, and like you're gonna take that over like my most recent grade at like, you know, senior year or my junior year, like my that makes absolutely zero sense. Well,
I thought it was interesting too because I swam all 4 years, and I also was the vice president of student government, like junior and senior year. So I thought those things would maybe like, okay, we got a B, but you were also really busy. But they were like, no.
Yeah. Okay, so you did. So you were like super super busy during college. You know, I mean, so like, what was that like? You know, you swam. I'm assuming you were scholarship swimming, or did you just do it just because you loved it?
No,
okay.
My whole goal was to go to school for free.
Okay, so you did go to school for swimming though, and they paid for your whole schooling.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So basically, I guess we could talk about that if you want. You know, did you like doing the swimming, you know, during your school, or did you just keep doing it just because they were paying for your schooling?
I loved college swimming. It was probably like the best reason to go to college. Best friends, and it like made college worth going to, if that makes sense. Like otherwise I think I would have been doing some like crazy partying and
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that probably hindered you partying a little bit. You know, you probably didn't go as many parties as like the person that's not an athlete, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So you came out of college. You didn't really do what you wanted to do. If it makes you feel better, I applied for what I forget, was it not the MCAT? I applied for basically the chemistry G grad to get into grad school, and I failed miserably. Like I took it one time, and it was supposed to be like 50% organic and like 10% analytical and like 10% this and 10% that, and the whole test was analytical. And I was like, I did not study for this at all. Like we walked out of it, and I looked like to the people that were like with me, and I was like, did you feel like that whole test was analytical? And they were like, yeah. And so like at that point, I knew I failed miserably. I still applied for some schools. I think I applied for something up in Philly. I applied for like 2 or 3 places where like, because I'm not sure if you know how that works for like your doctorate, but for chemistry, you don't necessarily apply for the school you want to go to. It's more so the doctor that you want to work under and like what they're doing at that school. So I applied for like a couple, and they're like, yeah, no, you're dumb. You can't come to this college. my tests were like not even close.
And then it becomes funny,
in.
right? Like we become in charge of testing. Like we're chemists by trade. We become that, and they're like, "Oh, you were too stupid to go study chemistry, but career."
It is true though. Like, I know a lot of people that are like very successful, and I'm like, you're not that smart.
Yeah.
Like I was over you, and I can tell you, like, I was way smarter than you. I don't know how you're like 5 steps ahead of me.
Yes.
But no, that's funny. But okay, so you came out of that and you went into Milan. So this is where like, you know, me and Chelsea became pretty good friends. You know, we were like the Milan crew. where did your let's just go through your progression of guess just work. So just go through your like what you did and like the years, how you progressed through that, and we'll take it one at a time.
So my family gave me an option of finding a job or go back to school. And I refused to go get a master's in chemistry or biology because I was like, there's no point. I don't understand. So I kept applying to Milan a million times. And they were finally like, okay, you're from the area. I think we'll take you. It's okay. So I got hired as a HPLC chemist on second shift. I was on what they call a train team. So we were doing the bulk production. So I hated every minute of it. I love the people I worked with, but you go to work, you have a recipe, and then hopefully things go right, but then you're not allowed to use science if it goes wrong, so you just have to take the blame and move on.
You are just a glorified cookie maker.
That's how I would describe everybody what I did, because you can't explain that to people. And I was like, I baked 200 cookies tonight. My friends only baked 1 dozen.
That's funny.
And then one of my cookies turned up at.
One was flat. The other ones all had like the right height of raising. Yeah. No, people that aren't in the industry, you can't really explain it to them. Like, I would try to talk to Carrie about like, how we made mobile phases and diluent, and she'd be like, mogul phases? And I was like, no, mobile phases. So
I remember drawing peaks like on paper, and when I met Trevor, and he's like, I don't understand. And I'm like, good, because I don't want to explain it.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard job to explain to people. I try to explain it on the first episode. I'm like, I gotta like dumb it down, but like not dumb it down too much, but then like keep it still like interesting enough for my chemistry friends. Yeah, so that was pretty interesting. So bulk prepping, you did like what did your night look like? Like, were you like busy like 80% of the time, 70% of the time, 50% of the time, or were you like literally running around like?
I was good at time management, so I made sure I was out that door at 11:30, no matter what. But usually I was mainly sample prepping. A lot of times I was lucky because we were on a training team. I'd have my instrument already set up, so you could just go plug it in. But I'd be making like 50 liters or 25 liters of diluent and 25 liters of mobile phase, and you're just like carrying around this jug through the lab.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got a hernia pulling one of those 50 liters up onto the cabinet. I'm pretty sure that's where I got my hernia from.
Yeah. And then trying to most of my night was spent trying to find glassware.
Oh man, that was I don't even want to remember the days of trying to run around finding glassware. That was pretty miserable.
I'll bribe you. Do you have any hidden in your cabinet?
So for everybody that's out there that doesn't understand the chemistry talk, the glassware is like the volumetric flask that we use, and they had to be cleaned between like each test. So like pretty much we were just always churning glassware, like literally always. Like you would get done with a run and your numbers would look good, and you're like, dump all the glassware. Get it all. And people were like hoarding glassware, and they'd be like, no, these are my 250 milliliter flask. So it was always like a task to try to find glassware to do your job. Yeah, that was the fun days for sure. All right. So yeah, you're an analytical HPLC chemist. Now I can say without a doubt, and do not take this in the wrong way, you are one of the highest ballers at playing the game that I know. You were great at your job, and also, but at like networking, you were so good at networking. Like you jumped probably like 5 steps, and I'm not saying it's not because you're good. You were good, but you were also great at networking. So take us through like, how you did that, because like, dude, I saw you climb through Milan faster than I've ever seen anybody climb in a job ever. Like ever. And it's not even like, hey, she's in this position and she's going from here to here. She would jump from this step. She'd go 2 jumps above, and then she'd just get that job, which you're supposed to be in that job for 18 months. And then you jump like another 2 steps. I have so much respect for you. It's out of this world. So take us through that. Cause I'm really interested to see like how you think of how it happened, because I saw you climb from, nothing to, you were like up there, man, up there.
It was actually, I mean, it's really cool. I did have some wonderful people help me, but I think my biggest thing is I was always hungry for more. That's like when I learned that there was travel jobs in pharmaceuticals, I was like, I want that. When I learned that I didn't have to be in the lab and people left the lab, I was like, oh, I want that. Because some people really do, like, I mean, we all know Jeff Okel, he wanted to be in the lab forever. That's fine. People love that. It's not me. Even now, like, my conversations are like, what's next? Like, I'm bored. So my first...
you've always been like that.
My first step out of the lab was at exactly 18 months, which, if you guys don't know, typically 18 months is how long you stay in a job at our company. It's pretty typical in the industry before you're allowed to apply internally for jobs. And someone that was my old team lead actually came down to the lab and was like, Chelsea, I have a second shift position as a senior chemist doing QA review and release. And I think they just had no internal applicants because most people that leave the lab don't want to stay on second shift. And I was like, yeah, I'm interested for sure. Tell me all about it because I don't know what it is. So I kind of went into that just like open, kind of very naive, because I just went up to them and I was like, they're like, so do you know what we do? And I'm like, no, but can you teach me? Because no one really knows when they start a job what they're doing, because every company's a little different. And I mean, we're all young. You're not taught these life skills or industry skills. So I remember when I was in the lab and several of our analysts were like, ew, why are you going to take a second shift job? You're only going to make $200 extra a paycheck. And that's why they weren't applying for it. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry. That's like a 2 nice dinners. Like, I don't know what $200 is to you, but I will take $200 more. Because it's kind of like compounding interest, right? Like, you're going to keep compounding that
for sure.
growth over time.
I don't think people look at it like that, though. I think like you have like the right mind frame of like, hey, I'm going to get this job. And like, even if it's $100, I'm like one step closer to the goal I want. But like, once you take that first step, it's so much easier to take that second step. Like, so I totally agree with you. It definitely, like, when you climb that ladder, that first ladder is like the hardest to climb. And then once you get that first ladder, it really, like, you can just start climbing the ladder easier and easier. So it is like compounding interest almost, like 100%. Yeah.
So then I was in that position for probably like another little over a year and a half. And we had an assistant manager position open up. I applied for it, but at the time, who ended up becoming a very good colleague of mine, but one of the managers, who we shall not name, did not like me and did not like that I was climbing so fast. So she would not let me apply for the job. So then steps in we had another group member come in, and she kind of was like, wow, Chelsea, you're doing all this. And I kind of was like, listen, I have some really great ideas, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, that one took a little over 2 years, but they created a role for me. So I ended up becoming the supervisor of release chemistry. I don't think you'll ever find that title anywhere in the world, but basically I was in charge of 2 people. I made sure that we were getting releases out on time. I would attend some meetings, and I was trying to clean up like the mess that our department was from previous management. All right.
Sorry to cut you off. I want to dig into that a little bit more. So when you say that, like when you say this role was made for me, like you're not only saying, hey, I'm good at my job, you're also saying I have positioned myself so well that people respect me so much. I want to see what you think about this, but like you can be great at your job. You can be really good at your job. But if you don't network appropriately, no one's ever going to be like, "Oh, Chelsea down down the hallway, she's doing really good. Like we should make a job for her. Like we should just totally make this job and make this for her." So like dive into that a little bit more. Like how did you like build that relationship to like that way they not only saw the work that you were putting in and saw how good of a job you were doing, but they noticed the job you were doing enough to go, hey, we should make a job for her.
So like I said, I'm like the hustle. So I found areas of improvement and I went up and I was like, they were talking about, we need to do this. And I was like, I'll write the SOP on that. I'll create that. Or, hey, I got trained in LIMS, which is one of our computer softwares we use in pharmaceuticals. And I actually learned basically coding. So I could understand why we're using it the way we're using it. And then that's how I wrote the SOP. And then you probably remember me giving the really awkward training to the whole mile. Just trying to like clean up things that no one really knew why we were doing them. And that was my question. I will say at my college, our motto was like question the question. So my whole thing when I was looking at processes, I was like, but why do we do that? And a lot of times like, well, that's how we created it like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I would say you get pushback a lot. Like if you ask that question in a pretty like, I would say seasoned like company, it's like people don't ask why. Yeah. So that's really interesting that you said that you asked that question. I mean, I ask that question all the time and they're just like, shut up, Greg, you're annoying, like go away. So like, yeah, I mean, but you had to be doing something obviously different than most people because most people question it, but you're not only questioning it, you were also taking action and saying, hey, I'll do this. I'm not only questioning, but I'm also offering a solution as well as questioning. Like, hey, why do we do this? Here's a solution, to fix.
And that's what I've noticed
this
in
problem.
Like, every job I've had in Mylan and Pharma is people want to do the bare minimum. So if you're willing to go a little bit above and beyond and like take those tasks that like maybe people don't want. For example, I worked weekends when we had a girl on maternity leave and like everyone was like, no one wanted to do that. And I was like, listen, I'll do it, but I'm going to work Thursday, Friday, Saturday instead of Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And they're like, wow, we didn't think to ask for that. And I'm like, you're doing a favor. Like if you go above and beyond, people are more willing to like bend for you. If you're like, here's a solution.
Yeah.
Let's go for that.
Yeah, I would attest to that. I got preferential treatment for sure when it came to like doing split shifts and whatnot. Like I used to play hockey all the time and I worked midnights and my hockey games either fell like right before or like, 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So like I would just come in and work. Like I didn't even ask my managers. Like I got to the point where like I would ask so much. I'm like, I'm just doing it. And my managers never had a problem with it. But like other people would be like, hey, can I split shift because like XYZ? And like they didn't put in any extra work. So the managers were like, no, I'm not going to like let you do that because like, what are you giving? You're not giving me anything in return.
Exactly.
So yeah, like 100%, like everything is negotiable. Like if you're putting in extra work, like you can negotiate like a couple of things that like maybe, say Tyler on third shift won't be able to do because like they see that you're putting in the extra work and they see that you're doing it. But you also gotta like not annoyingly make it known, but you gotta like, hey, I did this, or like, hey, I did this. Like you have to tell people. Like you can't be one of those people that just like do extra work and then you just fly under the radar. Like when you do extra work, you're like, hey, just to let you know, You know,
And I will say, like, I had
that's
some
definitely
good,
what I've noticed for sure.
good people in your corner. So, I mean, like, I had one manager in my department who wasn't my direct, well, she ended up being my boss, but we had another one who took me under her wing, and I noticed she always stayed late. So I started staying just a little bit later. And I would go ask her, like, why are you still here? Do you need help? Like, what are you working on? I can help to help get you out of here. Because I think it's important that, like, if your boss has a work-life balance and you have a work-life balance, you're going to work to make sure that you both. So if you show you care, they're going to care back a little bit too. Because a lot of times, maybe there was something she was doing that, like, could I have taken that on during the day? And that's one less thing. And I think if you show you care towards your management and you actually care what they're doing and you show interest in what they're doing, it also makes them value more to teach you. They're like, oh, you want to know why I go to the material review board? I'm like, yeah, tell me what the material review board is. And then it would just be little things like that where she'd be like, can you make this presentation for me so that I can present it at that? I'm like, yeah. Or, okay, this is a problem we're having at the meetings and they're blaming it on us. And I'm like, well, yeah, we are probably creating that problem. But then, like, you go back, well, it's QC that's actually doing it. So let's stop the problem there and move forward. So, I mean, I think if you develop the relationships with your manager to show you want to work hard, you want to help them and the business, they're going to reward you in the same way.
So you're saying find the root solution and helping people above you is a good thing.
Yes.
Crazy thought. A lot of people would be saying that's brown nosing. What would you say to those people?
I think that's the business world.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's networking.
I don't think you can get around it. Like, I mean, if you want to help people, if you want to get ahead, you have to help people. Like, you can say whatever you want. Like, I mean, you can call it brown nosing, you can call it sucking up. I mean, you have to. If you want to get ahead, you have to help the person above you. Like, you're never gonna climb a corporate ladder without helping the person that is in charge of you, that is in charge of your reviews, in charge of getting the because who do you think they're talking to? They're talking to their direct report and saying, oh, hey, guess what, Greg? Hey, guess what, Chelsea is doing X, Y, Z, and then that gets them on your radar, and then now they're saying, oh, to their direct report, oh, this person's really good in our. So, like, yeah, a lot of people have, like, the wrong idea of, like, oh, it's brown nosing. Well, no, it's just.
Unfortunately, the world we live in, like, you gotta have something that's gonna set you apart, right?
Yeah.
Because especially when you are maybe one of, like, 50 direct reports, like we were in the lab, right?
Yeah.
We're doing the same work, and unless I do something better than you, they don't even know our name half the time, right? Like, no. I remember when someone was in charge of the lab, I was like, hi, I'm Chelsea. Oh, that's right. You don't know my name even though I report to you? Cool.
You're probably talking about Sean. He was in there. He was, like, in for a second and out. He, like, drove us down. He just drove us down and down and down. And then he was like, all right, I'm going up to this other director position. Yeah, that was a time of Milan, but yeah, I think your idea of it is right. I was just saying that because that's how people look at it, unfortunately. Like, Oh,
I mean, I've had everything. I've had people say really mean stuff when you also move up too. Like, I had a coworker say that the only reason I get promoted is because I'm skinny and pretty. I'm like, oh, excuse me, please don't take this away from my actual ability.
Yeah, no. I mean, you're definitely good looking, but you were a hustler, 100%. Like, I saw you making moves all day, every day, and there wasn't, like, I actually, it's funny because I had a couple of people that, they would talk crap, and I'd be like, Chelsea's my friend, and I think she's really good at her job. So I think that's why she's getting ahead. But that's just Milan for you. People just like to be unhappy at Milan. Like, they literally did. They're like, oh, I didn't get senior chemist because, like, I've been here for 5 years. It's like, you don't want to go off of weekends and you think you're going to get senior chemist? Like, what do you no, like, you have to be on day shift. Like, you can't be, like, a team lead on weekends. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
work, you know? So yeah, it's just really funny. But yeah, okay. So you did that. You really added value to your managers. So like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's why, but like the networking aspect, because like I saw you becoming not only like adding value, but also becoming friends with people, like high up. Like, you know, I think I went to your going away party and Joss Paul, who was like the, you know, like the new like president of like our huge organization coming to Chelsea's going away party. I'm like, man, she's got friends in high places. Yeah.
That was so the same job I was in where my managers really valued me. I got a really unique opportunity to run the back room during audits. So,
Okay.
For those who don't know, when the FDA comes, there's like this core little room of people who basically manage the entire thing. And you were there from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night. But in that, you have to also be the people that are in that position. And this is probably another reason where I got ahead a little bit more, is I was very assertive. I was not afraid to go up to people that were higher than me. So I got picked to be in the back room for one of the biggest audits we had, which was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
In that time, I got to meet pretty much every higher up in the facility because they're the ones that were speaking to the auditors. And apparently I made a really good impression. So after the inspection, we had to do some fun remediation activities. I got picked for all of them. And people were like, I want Chelsea to do this. I want Chelsea to do that. I'm like, okay. So then I not only meet the head of our site, but we were a global company. I become working hand in hand with the heads of global. And then once those people know your name and you can show them that you're worth your work and you work a little longer and you know, sometimes it sucks. Like, yeah, you do have to like play the game of, okay, I notice everyone's still leaving at 3:30, but these global people are staying late. I'm going to stay late. I'm going to figure out why, like, you know, what all can we do? And that gets noticed. You know, people are like, oh, she's staying here to make sure the work's done. She's not leaving at 3:30 because that's what time her salary says she's to leave.
So I would agree, and I would also disagree. I would push back a little bit. I think you have a great personality, and I think you're great at communication, but you're also great at networking. Like that is a true skill. Like it isn't like a skill that you can just like, oh, I stay late, I work hard, and you know, it's really like you were not only good at staying late, but you were also good at your job, and you were good at telling people this is what I'm doing. Like I'm staying late. You were making sure that they saw your value. Like you can stay late and you can add as much value as you want, but if other people don't realize that, it doesn't matter. So I would give you more credit than what you're giving yourself credit. I think you were not only great at your job, you were not only great at doing that extra work, but I think you were great at making people notice it, which is a skill in and of itself. A lot of people don't understand that. Like it's hard to like make people see it, but not be annoying about it. That is a skill in and of itself, 100%. And yeah, like I'm telling you, I watched you grow because I mean, we were pretty much in the same position. You jumped 20 times above me and like fast. So like I think I always told you, I was like, man, Chelsea, like I love seeing you jump so far. I got no hate for anybody that gets, you know, far, you know, cause I would say we both put in, you know, good effort, but you really did. I mean, you added more value to people and people saw it and people gave you that option and gave you that, you know, ability to get ahead. And, you know, it's awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'll always give you credit for that. I love seeing you do that. So, okay. So I know you were in Milan and you work with like the FDA audit. How was that? How did that help you? Like what skills did you gain from that? Because I mean, that's not like an experience that everybody gets to do.
No, I mean, I know Dylan got to go talk to an inspector. I got to inspect. I actually got to talk to them, but I also led them around and I helped give the tours. And you get to see what actually goes through, and you get to see like how intense they are or how not intense they are, because there's just so many different personalities. And I think the best thing I learned from that is how to be like politic about things, because you have to learn to kind of, and that's what they teach you in the, like, we had coaching in the back of this audit room for everyone that went in to speak to an inspector. And they were like, okay, basically here's the psych background of the person you're going to talk to. Not really, but in a way, they'd be like, okay, she's going to pause after every question she asks you to make you think that to give you more information.
So I'll throw this out there. Corey always said, when they ask you what time, tell them 1:35. Don't say, I have a Rolex, it's blue, and it's 1:35. So yeah,
I got it at Macy's.
yeah. I mean, because like you're not incriminating yourself. You're not saying that you did anything wrong, but like what you say could be taken out of context.
Exactly, and people start spewing when they're nervous.
Yeah,
and you're like, well, I didn't ask about that, but now I want to know more.
So it's actually interesting. So I don't know if I told you this, but I'm getting into real estate investing. And one of like the big things with real estate investing is when you're talking to possible like houses, is you say like, hey, like, do you want to sell your house? And they're like, yeah, I'd sell my house. And you're like, okay, like, what do you think a good price is? And they're like, 110,000. You're like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I mean, I could see 110,000. Like, but I would be like, willing to take like 90,000, maybe like even 80, like, or maybe possibly 75 if it was cash. Like, and like, they're just like literally just giving you all like the dirty details, and you didn't even say anything. So like, I actually saw like, and I connected that like even before like, I was like, oh my God, this is so much like when they said, don't do this to auditors. Like, don't give information away that you shouldn't be giving away.
Probably the best tip I tell you is like watch some auditing, like, because there's auditor trainings out there.
Yeah.
That will probably help you in your sales like 100%.
You think?
Or your oh my gosh.
I'm definitely gonna do that right after this call, actually.
Because they're like slimy little boogers, but not really. They're just. But they're getting you to tell them more information, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
how they
understanding
do it.
Like human psyche is like massive, and like either sales or just like the information, like industry, like it's really important. Like understanding why people do stuff. Yeah, so that's super interesting. So like, how did you bundle all of that? And then I know you leveraged all of your, skill and all of your background to work at the current job you're at right now, right?
So actually, after that job, I was still at Mylan. I went into the manufacturing floor.
Okay. I don't think I knew that.
So I worked. I was supposed to be a manager of third shift, but then I wasn't allowed to go to third shift, so I had to stay on first shift. Because I had good friends at the plant.
Yeah.
I actually became the head of quality engineers. So I had 8 quality engineers that worked for me. I was the lead. We basically walked the floor. We were kind of like the police, making sure, like writing up deviations real time.
Okay.
It was an interesting role. It was like a merge between quality and manufacturing. I wasn't in that position super long because then one of my friends from Global reached out to me because they had left Mylan. It was a startup in San Francisco. So I went there and I became the senior manager of QA. I started out as a manager, and I kind of just took the interview as like let's see what it is. Like, I don't know life outside of Mylan.
Yeah.
It was the best move I've ever made. I'll tell you, if you ever get a chance to work for a startup, do it. They treat you like gold.
I would say, so I'll ask you this. What was I'll let you answer this. I'm throwing this out at anybody. If you ever want to say like, mid, high pay, low pay. You can say that if you don't want to give away like, how much you made. But like considerably like from Mylan to the startup, was it lower? Was it the same pay? Was it higher? Because I know for me, I've looked at a couple startups and they're significantly lower, like crazy low. But like you
I
also
made
have
$25,000 more than when I left Mylan.
Really? That's interesting.
Yes.
That's very interesting. Because all of the startups I looked at, I mean, they're like basically like, oh, like you'll have like a great chance to move up in the company. Like that's kind of how they sell it. It's not like, oh, we're gonna pay you a lot of money, like a lot of money. Like, but I do know like if you can get a startup, you get like a ton of skills. Like, because you're pretty much like you have like every single hat on. Like you're doing everything.
So that role was really cool. I was that company, we contracted out everything because it was a very unique setup in which every company, there was a parent company and every subsidiary was one molecule. So you only dealt with one drug.
Oh my gosh. We're going from a 300 drug portfolio to a one drug portfolio. You're like, yes, hallelujah.
Yeah. So it was really cool. So I got to work through supply chain. I worked through, because we went to the CROs, research facilities. We went to the outsourced lab facilities. We went to outsourced manufacturing facilities. I traveled to all of those. I got to see like what other labs are like, what small labs are like, what small scale manufacturing looks like, which was totally different. I got to gown up and go in the rooms. I mean, much more hands-on. So then you feel like you start to know the process, right? I feel like the biggest thing that I kept telling people as I moved up was, I wish when you first start in pharmaceuticals, they take you through the entire process over like a month, not just some slideshow, because then you understand why everything's important, right?
Yeah. I would say that's my biggest regret of Mylan is not getting to understand the manufacturing side a little bit more. I never really was like, oh, like that's something I want to learn. I was just like, like whatever, like I'm just gonna do my job, like on the QC side. So I would totally agree with you 100%.
And for those who don't know, at Mylan, it was very strange. There was a union side, which was all the manufacturing workers, and the company side, which was all the higher ups, quality, chemist, everything like that. And it was like you were walking through a high school and you had like a costume on when you walked through, because they all had blue pajamas on, and you're in like jeans or dress clothes or whatever you were wearing. It was a very divisive thing. So for me to get to go into the manufacturing thing, it gave me way more respect for the workers. Also, like to see what they're doing, and you're like, okay, well, you deserve to be paid well for that because you're covered in drug.
Yeah. That's wild. Like, yeah, like you literally like particles, dust. Like it's everywhere. Especially like, people that are working with like the like all of your like
your high potent sweets.
Yeah, like the high potent stuff and whatnot. Like that's some serious stuff. Like, yeah, for sure. I mean, you have proper PPE on, but still.
I mean, and especially, if you're gowning properly and everything, but there's still room, right? Like, I didn't want to be doing that. So, yes, you deserve to be paid to do that.
Yeah.
But should you be paid more than a chemist? I don't know. That's a different story.
Yeah, I will still stand on my pedestal and say that chemists were not paid. We were paid pretty fairly, I would say, in the Morgantown market. But, I applied for jobs out in, like, the, like, Cali market and, like, New York market and, like, even Florida. Florida is still, like, it's still, like, that, like, hybrid. But, like, I looked, you get literally dumped on. Like, I don't know how people live out there on like a chemist salary. It's not even enough. So yeah, okay. So off topic a little bit.
Sorry.
But no. Because it's important. People need to know. Like, but if you're like Chelsea though, and you move up and you add value, you don't got to worry about it. So, let's go into what are you doing now? Like, how did you transition from that startup to like what you're doing now? Because you're with a pretty big company right now, right?
So we're still technically, we just went commercial officially. So now we're out of the startup phase. Yet again, I got reached out by a former colleague, who happened to be the head of quality at Mylan, globally. And they, reached out to me and said, we have some jobs if you're interested. Like very kind of nonchalant. And I was like, oh, yeah, let's see what's about. I have a really good gig at the time, and I was like, meh. She's like, well, it's biotech. So we're doing injectable sterile facility. And I was like, ooh, I know nothing about injectables.
So, okay, hold on. Before you get into that, let's explain to everybody the difference between oral solid dosage, injectables, transdermals, and the price difference on those. And this is what people like, you got to understand in markets. If you're making something that makes $1 compared to something that's making $5, the person in that market is going to get paid more for doing that. So like, go over like with the listeners, like what's the difference between like say an oral solid dose, like, profit like $1 per like pill, which is not that much. It's like what, like 5 cents a pill or something like that, compared to like a transdermal or like an injectable, like what you're doing.
So the biggest difference is there's this, like most oral solid dose are small molecules. So they're really easy to manufacture. There's usually 4 or 5 steps in the process of the actual manufacture. So it's a low cost. You buy the products in bulk, you tablet, you capsule them. High operating costs, obviously, but once you have your initial startup, you have the machinery, it ends up being, when you can see it, if you use it, but I think like he's saying 5 cents a pill for some drugs, and there are markups very high, but that's why we have generics in that sense. So then there also, because it's oral, there are different regulations than if you have a sterile injectable, so that adds cost to the product. Also, the products are live cells, so you have to have, and they're very complex molecules. So the downstream and upstream process can be like 20 to 50 steps. And then the testing throughout that is about 10 times, whereas we have some in-process testing in oral solid dose. There's in-process testing like every step of the way in sterile facilities because you're injecting it right into your bloodstream.
So that's super interesting that you say that, because like I would say this is where people, I think there's a big disconnect, is like quality. So quality control is literally, it loses the business money. It
Yes.
doesn't make any money. Like it is a negative on the spreadsheet of this is how much we spend to make sure our product is good. You're not making any money. And that's kind of where my like mindset, like I was like, I got to get out of this like industry, because like I'm literally never going to get paid enough, because I'm losing the company money if I do my job. Like if I say, hey, this isn't good, I'm costing the company $5 million. So like, they're not going to be like, oh, let's give him a raise because he found that this wasn't good. They're just like, oh, they found that this $75 million product is not good. We have to dump the whole thing. Okay, well, now we have to pay our QC people less because we don't have more money.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So that was a whole mindset shift for me, and that's why I got out of the QC world. I hated the regulation. I hated like the aspect that I'm never making the company money. Like when you get in your positions, like you're ahead of people, so like it's a little bit different, but like yeah, like you're still like the company is losing money every time quality finds something is wrong. So
I mean, you're hemorrhaging money on quality. Quality is a cost all the time. Every quality employee basically is a loss, but it's a gain to get a product to the market. Because ideally, you never want to get to the final stage and have to recall a product, or not even be able to launch that product or get it to the market. But the reality is, people make mistakes. Things happen.
100%. Yeah. And 100%.
What I will tell you about the biggest difference of sterile injectables are that it makes you feel like oral solid dose is dirty.
Really?
I've never seen such strict regulations. And I mean, like, these products get quadruple checked. Like, it's a clear vial, and they're manually, visually inspected 3 times. So, I mean, like, that's besides the point that it's getting, like, chemistry tested and bioburden testing. And
That's really interesting. They literally visually, like, look at it and, like, hey, this is good. Like, that's wild. Like, after, because, like, you know, when you test it, like, with HPLC, or how do you test that? Is it GC, MS, or, like...
so there are, I think we have peptide mapping, there's HPLC, there's like 50 tests. So you know how our release testing was like 5 or 7 tests?
Yeah.
It's insane. We do virology testing to make sure there was no viruses. There's a lot of room for contamination because it is liquid.
Okay. Yeah, and they're live. Yeah. That's a huge difference, being live, you know.
But the manufacturing process does inherently pose risk, right? So you can have shavings of metal, like from the needle going into the plunger rod. Things like that. And that's what you're checking for to make sure, because sometimes those things you can't test because you can't see them.
Yeah, because you're not, like, when you're taking when you're taking a sample, you're not going to take a sample of, like, metal. Like, yeah. That makes sense. I mean that's why like Pepsi stuff and whatnot gets recalled, because, like, you know, glass or like metal, like shards get in it or something like that. And, like, they're not testing for that. Like,
yeah, it would have to be like your random sample also had it in it, which is probably rare, right?
Yeah, very rare. Yeah. So no, that's super interesting. You know, I had a chance to actually work with, like, the transdermals at the time, over at Milan. I networked a little bit, and I had someone that wanted to pull me over. And that was when we were, like, blackballed, like, we couldn't move.
Oh yeah,
Like, that was like the high point of, like, the FDA, and they were like, yeah, if you're in the lab, there's, like, 0 chance I'm pulling you from the lab. So you live and you learn, whatever. No, okay. So, I want to also get into, because you are not only great at your job, you're great, you know, everything that you've done, all the accomplishments, you love to do triathlons and Ironmans, and you travel all over the place. I'm always seeing you somewhere. So if you want to shout out your IG, you know, as you're talking, get people to follow you, because, I mean, you post some good stuff, man. I like it.
Well, when you post this, you can tag me, but it's Chelsea with an extra A _ Shea, SHAE. I post really obnoxious triathlon reels on the daily, but I also post a lot of my traveling, because now my role is external quality, and I work for a global company, so I get to go, and our company is based out of Iceland.
Ooh.
So I'm in Iceland about every other month. We have.
Have you ever watched Mighty Ducks?
Yes.
Is Iceland green, or does Iceland have snow?
It's both. It's like crazy place.
Okay. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, so it's very hard to do triathlon and travel for your job. I'll say that's where I have, like, hiccups in my work-life balance, because I want to be a top triathlete. I'm going to World Championships in 2 weeks.
Let's go.
But, you know, I've had definitely some setbacks, because I'll get a call on Friday saying I need you to be in Switzerland on Monday. And it doesn't really fit into training, right? So I take my bike when I can. I run all over the world, which is pretty cool. But all in all, you know, like, I know I'm not going to go professional in triathlon, so I need something to make my money. I also have very expensive habits, so I need to keep hustling to keep making money moves.
Yeah, I feel like you're buying a new bike every other week. I see you opening a bike, like, literally every week. I also see you with that company, the clothing company you always wear.
So I'm on their triathlon team. It's called Trace Pinas.
There you go.
It's 2 awesome ladies from Miami, or one awesome lady named Elise. She started the whole thing, and now there's several people running it. Mary Carmen helps out a whole lot. They have me on their team, so I get a pretty deep discount. And then I get to hang out with them a lot.
That's
so I get to go. They hook us up with some cool opportunities at races, and we just like hanging out together. So
there you go. Hey, my goal is, to have real estate all over the U.S. at some point. So I'll let you know when that happens, and maybe when you're running triathlons in Hawaii, I can come watch you.
Heck yeah, that'd be awesome.
So yeah, but I also do want to I do want to touch on that a little bit more. Like, so where have you done triathlons, and like how you love drinking IPAs. You're from West Virginia, so you love WVU football, unfortunately. So like, what do you like to do? How does that, how's your work-life balance? How's all that stuff?
So this job's made things a little bit more challenging because I am on the West Coast and Arizona does not change time like the rest of the world.
That would be miserable.
I am in Iceland also does not change time. So I am always 7 hours behind the site. So
Okay.
most of my meetings start I now say 5 a.m. is my hard cutoff. I will not do a call before 5 a.m. But I live in Arizona, so to get quality workouts in, you either have to get your butt out of bed or just suffer in the heat. So it's made things hard because you can't get a good workout in when it's 110 outside.
No.
So the good news is I get done like pretty early because everyone's offline, or I can take breaks in the afternoon. Like today, I went swimming at lunch because it's Thursday and no one's around at 6 o'clock p.m. in Iceland.
Yeah, no.
They also don't work 40-hour weeks there.
I've heard that like the U.S. market is like literally the only like country that works like 40 hours, and we work like 12 like all year round. Like, I mean, you probably remember this. We had some suppliers like from Italy, and like when we had investigations like around like October, it was like, forget it. Like, you're not getting any information. Like, they're not doing anything. They don't work for a month. Like, out of the year. Like,
so that's how it is in Iceland. It's very common culture. They typically just take all summer off because it's the prettiest time of year there. So like you try to get a hold of people and they're out of office. It's like, I'll be back in 5 weeks. And you're like, wait, what?
That's
I'm like,
wild.
I feel guilty taking a week off. Like,
yeah. 100%. Like getting like what we had, people were like all up in arms where we got like 3 weeks vacation. Like, oh my God, I can't believe we got 3 weeks. They're just casually taking 6 weeks off. Like, see you later.
I know. I get 5 weeks now, and like my last company was crazy, and this was a startup. They had an unlimited vacation policy. It's a double-edged sword.
I would get screwed in that because I would just never take it. And then, yeah, it was like when people called off like every Monday. It was like, oh, it's a Monday, I'm calling off. And it's like, those people never got punished, and you're like here every day. You're like, I'm here to do my work.
Yeah. So I'm actually taking like 2.5 weeks of October off, which is like going to be a first for me. So we'll see how I handle it. Because that makes me worried about like what I'm coming back to. You're like, oh, what am I going to have to do when I come back?
Yeah, that's true. That I know. I talked to Corey the one time, and I said something. I was like, "Don't you catch up on your emails like when you have a week off?" He's like, "Oh no." He was like, "If it's important, they'll email me from like when I get back from vacation." He was like, "I don't go back through my emails." Like, so just like literally put in your like report, like, "Hey, I'll be off. If it's important, email me back on this day." Like, I'm not going back through my emails. But I know a lot of people when they're off for a week, they'll go through all their emails, or they'll just like sit on their phone and like answer emails like on vacation, which I don't think is like a great idea. Like, that's your vacation. You should like go
I will
do some
not
fun
be doing
stuff.
that next week. Well, I leave for Hawaii next Sunday, so my work email might even be deleted from my phone just so I don't have to think about it.
I would do that. I would 100% just delete it. Don't worry about it. So you're going to Hawaii. You're doing Ironman, right?
Yeah.
Which one? What is this? Which one is this?
So this is Ironman World Championships. So it's 140.6 miles.
All right.
In the lava fields of Kona, Hawaii. So
That's awesome. So tell people who don't know what an Ironman is, what does that consist of?
It's a 2.4 mile swim. It's a 112-mile bike, and a full marathon, which is 26.2 miles. So my goal is somewhat, well, it's the hardest course on the circuit, so I'm not putting too much on the time expectations, but typical course, it would take me about 11 hours to do.
Okay. So what is your expectations on this?
I'm trying to still I want to be around 11 to 12 hours, but I've been told to let that all go.
I have faith in you. I think you can do 11 hours. Let's go, Chelsea. I got you.
And you have 17 hours to complete it. Okay. Otherwise, you don't get to say you're an Ironman finisher. Even if you finish after 17 hours, you don't get any of the glory.
That's some bull. That's some bull right there. I still finished it. I'd fight that all day if I were you. No, I'm not taking that as a loss. Cool. So, what's your favorite beer? What's your favorite beer when you finish? What do you like to chug when you finish, when you cross that finish line?
So many good beers, but I have 3 favorite beers right now. One is Southern Tier Pumpkin.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It's the only good pumpkin beer in my opinion, and it packs a punch at like 8.6%. So you don't need a few. I do miss having them in West Virginia because it's not as easy to find out in Arizona. I miss going to varsity club and getting it in a big fishbowl. Really bad.
When I went to Vegas for like my first time, I ordered a Yingling, which, Yingling is like the most common beer in PA. And like I went there and I was like, hey, can I have a Yingling? And they were like, what? And I'm like, a Yingling. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, it's a beer. And like, oh yeah, we don't have that here. And then when we went out to like the clubs and stuff, I ordered like a beer when we were out and they're like, oh my God, that's so East Coast. And I was like, yeah, I'm East Coast. So yes, it is East Coast.
I know. It's weird. Like most of my girlfriends here don't drink beer.
No.
And then I have a really big friendship group with people who are Mormon. And so they don't drink at all. So it's like, okay, guess I'm drinking my beer alone, guys.
My sister lives in Utah right now, and she hates it because, like, it's all Mormon there. And she goes, you can't even get a beer at lunch on Sunday.
And they meter their alcohol.
Yeah.
So, like, if you go to get a cocktail, there's, like, it's the state governs how much that little tap puts out. I'm like, this is insane.
It is wild. Yeah, Chelsea, this was awesome. I really, really enjoyed having you on. Like I said, I have so much respect for everything you did. I have so much respect for where you're at. I love seeing, you post stuff on Instagram and whatnot. I've always loved you. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to add? Is there anything that you would, suggest to people, starting out in life, trying to figure out what they want to do? What would you say? Don't
have your heart. I mean, have passions, but like when you're young, like explore careers. Like when I have a kid, like Seneca for you, I would tell you my big life advice is when she gets into high school, before the end of college, be like, let's go talk to someone who does this career. Like talk about the careers that people don't think of. Like, no, you don't have to be a firefighter. You don't have to be a doctor. Yeah. You don't have to be this. Like my husband's job, for example, it's a job we could have done, but no one told us we could have gotten this master's degree because when you say he's a PA, but he's not a physician's assistant. He's a pathology assistant. So he has a degree in forensic science. Okay. And then got a 2-year master's degree and making the same amount as a normal PA, but he doesn't see patients. He's in a lab.
Yeah. I actually know a guy that did that. He was in like forensic science, like down in Texas. So yeah, it's interesting. He didn't even go for chemistry.
Yeah. And you just wish I know my school was probably really bad about telling us jobs, and I hope schools will get better in the years, but I think people need to say like, oh man, maybe I'd like to do that, and not have your heart set at a freshman of high school that I'm going to be a dentist.
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
Or maybe just take some general classes and get a degree and then figure it out, because half the time we don't even use what we went to school for.
Who was it? Kevin Hart. He was a English major, right?
Yeah,
Remember that? He was a
history.
history major, and he was a chemist. Yeah, so it's like literally all they do is run a background check just to make sure you had a 4-year degree. That was literally it. Like,
Yeah, and I think you had to
yeah,
have like 1 year of OChem or something.
yeah, something like that.
But
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. All right. I always like to end too. What would you tell your younger self? I mean, it's kind of similar to like, what would you do now? But like, if you went back 20 years and you talked to your younger self, what would you advise?
take every open door.
Okay.
Because people say all the time the grass isn't greener on the other side, but how do you know? How do you know? Not I said investigate every open door, I guess is the better question.
I like that. I like that. Just peek in, like, is it greener over there? Nope, it's not. Okay, I'm out.
Yeah, like don't say no immediately. Take a take a chance on things.
And I think that stamps basically what I'm saying about you is like you explored it and you like networked with people because you explored other opportunities and like, you never know, even if you take a job for 6 months, you never know, what kind of relationship you might form on the back end of that they're reaching out to you a year later from now, like, hey, I really liked working with this person. We have this job open. They'd be great for it, just like what you did. Like, you had people reach out to you. I never really made enough of an impression on someone to be like, hey, Greg, we want you to come work for me.
Well, if I ever have direct reports, Greg, I would have reached out to you, but
yeah.
I keep getting in these positions where I just do work and no one wants to report to me. So
hey, it's all good. I applied for a couple jobs and they denied me. They're like, Greg, you suck. We don't want to hire you. And I was like, screw it. I'm working for myself. I'm selling real estate, baby. Let's go. No, I think it worked out for the best. I think, when one door shuts, it's not necessarily that you weren't good for that. I can guarantee you that door shutting on you for the dentist position. I guarantee you are in a better spot now than you ever would have been as a dentist. So not every time a door shuts on you is it a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a good thing. So yeah, really loved this episode, Chelsea. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
And don't get off right yet, because we have to let it upload. And I just want to say to all my listeners, thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.